To allow everyone to come into the webinar. So give us just a minute and we'll just make sure we get as many attendees in as possible. So we'll start in just a minute. Good morning, everyone. I'm Marlise Taylor, Director of Research for Visit North Carolina, and I wish I could see all your faces. I'm happy to be here with you this morning and really excited to bring you some research on our monthly partner webinar. So really excited to be here and really happy to introduce you to Peter Booth, who works with MMGY. He's been with them about 2 years and has written several reports on areas of the travel industry, including cruise travel, European travel, American and Canadian international travel. But he is working with us today on the Portrait of American Travelers. We at Visit NC have been a sponsor of this report for, I think, about 4 years now, and really since COVID have been digging deep into the insights that this report can give us. And we do have some proprietary questions that we are allowed each quarter. So very excited to share that with you today. Peter's going to go through our most recent report, our summer 25 report. Peter is out of the London office, so you'll notice a very nice accent when he starts to speak. But to let you know that if you are interested in the presentation, MMGY has agreed to allow us to share it as long as you credit MMGY with any of the data that you cite from this report. So big thank you to them for that. And I'm going to now turn it over to Peter to let him go through. One more housekeeping note, if you do have questions, if you would put them in the Q&A, and I will be reviewing those as Peter is presenting, and we'll make sure we get your questions answered. So I'm going to turn it over to Peter now. Peter, thank you so much for joining us this morning, and I'm going to turn it over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Marlies. And hello, everyone. Thanks for joining. And yeah, just first like to say a big thank you to North Carolina for your support of Portrait of American Travelers. We really do appreciate it. And I'm excited to bring you some of the findings from our summer report. This year's report covers some unique modules and insights into how Americans are thinking, planning, and spending. Insights which are valuable to understanding the visitors to North Carolina. Travel patterns are continuing to evolve and react to latest developments, both in the USA and globally. And keeping a tab on these developments is key to tailoring your marketing and tourism strategies. This report aims to highlight the opportunities in North Carolina by diving into analysis of the prospects for North Carolina and comparing them to the average US leisure traveler. There's quite a lot of data in this presentation, but as Marlies already said, the deck will be available for you after the webinar. Okay, so let's get going, and I'm just going to outline what we're going to be talking about in the webinar today. So I'm going to go through these different categories, starting off by looking at North Carolina's custom questions or the proprietary questions. These are unique to this study and not available to anyone else, not even MMGY. And they're directly linked to the key challenges assessed by the North Carolina team, and we carried them out in our survey. After that, I'm going to cover a broad range of topics covered in this study, including a travel outlook snapshot, which is a kind of broader look at the key habits and trends that we're seeing, before going a bit narrower into some of the modules, including road trips, family travel, travel advisors, and more. I'm going to try and add some of my insight to the slides as we go through and aim to pick out the most relevant data. And yeah, let's get started by talking briefly about the methodology. So in this study, we surveyed 4,509 adults, US adults, in May 2025. And out of those 4,509, 1,703 were defined as a North Carolina prospect. This means they're intending to take at least one overnight leisure trip during the next 24 months, and they were interested in visiting North Carolina. So they rated their interest 4 or 5 on a 5-point scale. The respondents were selected randomly and they participated in a 20-minute survey. And we can see in that table below, there's a range of age groups. One thing to note is that we didn't include the silent or GI respondents just because there's such a small number of them. Okay, and a brief look into the demographics of the study as well. So in this table, we can compare the demographics for the whole US leisure travelers and then the North Carolina prospects, as I outlined previously. A few things to pick out here are there are more millennials, so more millennial travelers who are interested in visiting North Carolina than the US average. There's more travelers, sorry, more prospects that have children under 18 at home. And also their household income is slightly higher than the average US leisure traveler. So 54% of prospects have a household income above 100,000 compared to 46% of the US leisure travelers. There's also slightly more employed full or part-time. Now, looking at the interest, the levels of interest in North Carolina, this slide is the overall interest. And we can see, first of all, that more travelers are interested in visiting North Carolina compared to the previous 2 years. So there's a growth of 4% in the number of travelers who voted or who said that they were extremely or somewhat interested in visiting North Carolina over the next 24 months. So very positive there. And splitting this down further by generation, we can see that interest in visiting North Carolina has grown for every generation, but particularly strong growth has been seen among millennials, Gen Zers, and Gen Xers. So these three groups are really bumping up their interest in visiting North Carolina, and especially millennials with almost 10% more interested compared to 2024. And wrapping up this interest section by looking at it by household income, we can see again positive changes year on year for all income levels, but specifically for those higher income travelers who are earning between $100,000 or more, both seeing significant increases in interest. Okay, so that gives you a kind of broad picture of who's interested in North Carolina and how that interest is growing. And now we're going to take a look at the proprietary questions. So as a reminder, these questions belong to North Carolina. No one else gets these results, and they're specifically geared towards some of the challenges identified by the North Carolina team. We're going to cover top destination types, sources for inspiration, and much more. So, beginning by looking at interest in North Carolina regions, we can see here that we've got the three regions laid out, and the coast is by far the most popular region to visit for prospects and for US leisure travelers. It's the coast first, and then the mountains, and then Piedmont. Sorry, probably awful pronunciation there. Um, but yeah, the coast is the most popular region. And building on that popularity of the coast, we also asked what type of holiday would the prospects and the US leisure travelers most like to do? So yeah, as I said, coast is the most popular, and linked to that finding, we can see that beach vacations are in the top two destination types for all different types of travel party. So each square in this table is a top two destination type for each travel party. So for travelers traveling alone, we can see that beach vacations and urban destinations are the top two destination types. What this really shows is the massive popularity of beach vacations in North Carolina. They're popular among all travel groups, but especially among those traveling with their significant other and those on a family vacation. And briefly looking past beaches or beach vacations, we can see that the top destination types do vary significantly by the travel party. So, solo travelers or those traveling with their friends are more likely to visit urban destinations, while those traveling with their significant other or on a group tour are more likely to visit destinations for historic attractions and museums. So again, important to consider what type of travel party you're appealing to when you're advertising or showcasing these different destination types. But essentially, beach vacations will always be a hit. So now we've seen where the prospects are likely to visit, let's see how they get their travel inspiration. Here we can see that these are the top 5 sources that prospects use for travel inspiration. And we can clearly see that the recommendations from friends and family are the most popular. Um, a lot of reasons behind this, but the most common one that we see is that when your friends or family go visit a destination and they come back and say they had a great time, you're probably very similar to your friends and family. So you end up thinking, oh, they had a great time, so I probably will as well. Travel review websites are also very popular, significantly more popular than the other sources, but visitnorthcarolina.com is a great source for inspiration, as well as online travel agencies and YouTube. Just to note as well that we do have a more extensive list of sources available on request. So if you'd like that, please let me know. Moving on from the overall top sources, let's have a look at the top travel media or news stories, which are most influential. And here we can see that top 10 or best of lists are the most influential travel media or news stories for these prospects. Um, each source is also more important for prospects compared to the average US leisure traveler. So it shows that they're looking for a wider range of sources, perhaps consulting more different sources and yeah, just looking for inspiration from a wider variety of places when they're planning their vacations. And building on that as well, we also asked what are the top brand partnerships that prospects value? And we can see that preferred partner discounts are the top most valued brand partnership, followed by travel brand partnerships such as airline packages or luggage deals, and then culinary brand pop-up experiences. So typically what we see is that the deals which allow travelers to save a little bit of money are always the most popular. So again, it's not too surprising that discounts and deals from travel brands are the most popular um, brand partnerships among prospects. But again, there's a wide range of popularity among the different sources, and it's not, you know, it's not sorry. Basically, there's a wide range of sources that these guys will look for. So aside from this, we also looked at how prospects prioritize their destination choice. And there were two basically key options here. And we can see that the majority of prospects prioritize their destination choice based on the type of travel offering. Around 5% more do that than prioritizing it based on the type of travel party. So again, you can appeal to both groups here, but slightly more prospects are prioritizing based on the type of travel offering. And To wrap up this section, the proprietary section, I'll just sum up some of the key findings. So, first of all, interest in visiting North Carolina has increased significantly across all demographics compared to the previous 2 years. This indicates a really healthy destination. Um, and millennials, Gen Zers, and Gen Xers are all showing very strong increases in interest, as well as those high income travelers who are such a desirable market. Beach vacations are extremely popular, the only destination type that appeared in the top two selections for all travel parties. And that just goes to show their universal appeal, as well as North Carolina's excellent reputation for these beach vacations. And travel media or news stories featuring the top 10 lists and preferred partner discounts are effective ways to drive interest among prospects. Anything that allows them to save a bit of money or get a deal are also highly popular, especially in tighter economic conditions. So, moving on now to the next topic, travel outlook snapshot. This section will aim to provide a sort of broader overview of prospects' spending habits, the number of trips they take, uh, broader travel sentiment, and key concerns they have with traveling. And kicking it off with a look at spending and trips, we can see on this graph here how the number of trips and expected spending has changed over the past 3 years. Basically, North Carolina prospects are planning to spend more and take more vacations in the next 12 months. This contrasts to the average US leisure traveler because their number of expected trips actually decreased, as well as their expected spending decreasing from 2024 to 2025. So that essentially indicates that the North Carolina prospects are actually increasing their travel and their travel spending, while the average traveler is decreasing it. So, really positive for prospects and for North Carolina. Um, Now let's see uh, when these prospects are planning to take their next trip. So, first of all, we can see that more travelers are going on vacation closer to their departure date. So, there's a higher number of prospects compared to previous years that are booking their trips within 6 months of departure compared to previous years. So, there's a lot of reasons behind this, but one important one is they may be trying to take advantage of last minute deals and save a bit of money on their vacation by booking closer to the departure date. Um, it also could be due to the type of vacation. As we'll see a bit later, road trips are growing in importance to these prospects. And, you know, a road trip tends to take less planning time than a big international vacation with flights and everything like that. So, yeah, more travelers booking closer to departure. And now let's have a look at overall travel sentiment index. So, I know this slide can look a bit confusing to begin with, but this basically maps traveler sentiment on a range of categories. So we've got 6 categories here: interest, safety, affordability, time available, personal finances, and quality of service. And the travel sentiment score basically provides a glimpse into how US adults are feeling about travel this year compared to the same time a year ago. So if the score's gone up, they're feeling more positive. If the score's gone down, they're feeling more negative, essentially. And this is the sentiment of North Carolina prospects across these different categories. And we can see that in two really key areas here, affordability of travel and personal finances available for travel, the North Carolina prospect sentiment has gone up quite significantly in both. This contrasts quite a bit to the average US leisure traveler, who's seen quite significant dips in both of these categories. And again, it goes to show that picture of a really resilient North Carolina prospect and, increasing vacation plans, planning to spend more, and they're also finding it slightly more affordable. And okay, so now shifting to look at the other end of the spectrum and the top concerns that we're seeing from travelers. So yeah, this slide basically covers the top 6 or 7 concerns that travelers cited. Um, and we can see that inflationary pressures on the household budget, as well as concerns about personal financial situation or job security, are the top 2 factors which are having a extreme impact on prospects' travel decisions. Um, we can see on the other hand of this that concerns about the price of gas are falling slightly, but again, these concerns tend to kind of stay fairly consistent year on year, especially inflationary pressures. We also asked briefly about the impact of the US presidential election and tariffs, and we can see that they're impacting around 3 in 10 prospects. So yeah, it will be interesting to see how this also changes going forward if prospects become more or less concerned. Um, Something that we kind of have to just wait and see. So summing up this section, we can see that um, prospects are planning to spend $4,810 on vacations in the next 12 months and take 4 trips over that same period. This spending is both up from last year and up from the average US leisure traveler. So, a very positive picture for um, prospects. And personal financial concerns, the impact of tariffs and inflationary pressures are causing or having the biggest impact on prospects. But on the other hand, the impact of the price of gas has been significantly reduced, which maybe is not a major factor, but considering the number of prospects who planning to take road trips, which we'll cover in a bit, it is an important factor to consider. Okay, and now moving on to the next category, or the next section. I'll briefly cover where people want to visit both the top states and the top destinations. So these are the top states of interest. And just for reference quickly as well, North Carolina interest was 100%, and that was kind of a prerequisite condition for qualifying as a prospect in the first place. Um, the interest in North Carolina among US respondents as a whole was 38%. And yeah, we can see here that perhaps unsurprisingly, the top 2 destinations are Florida and Hawaii. We always tend to see these destinations at the top because, well, they're just the favorite places for people to visit. Um, South Carolina is also popular here, likely due to attracting the similar kind of prospects that visit North Carolina. They're likely to visit South Carolina too. And looking at the top destinations, so slightly more granular than states, we can see that Florida Keys and these Hawaii destinations, again, they take up the top spots for prospects. Okay, so moving into our first summer module, road trips. I know this is a important area for North Carolina. There's a lot of great road trip routes around the state, so hopefully these findings will be interesting for you guys. First of all, we can see that road trips are hugely popular among prospects, and we can immediately see the appeal of them in comparison to the US leisure traveler. Yeah, just for reference as well, USLT is an abbreviation for US leisure traveler, if you see that throughout the report. And yeah, essentially, we saw a big increase in road trip interest from the previous year, and the fact that prospects' interest is even higher than the average US leisure traveler just goes to show how important this type of holiday is for them. So let's go behind these numbers and see what motivates prospects to take a road trip. We can see here the top two motivations are exploring multiple places and being spontaneous while traveling. The ability to pack everything needed in the car is less important in 2025. This indicates that travelers may be taking shorter trips or preferring to pack just the essentials when road tripping. So yeah, I mean, there hasn't been massive changes year on year for these top two reasons, but again, very important to consider for prospects. And let's take a look into how road trips are different for prospects compared to the US leisure traveler. The key finding here is that North Carolina prospects are planning to travel further and visit more places on their road trips than US leisure travelers. We can see that they're planning to visit 3.4 cities or places compared to 3.2 among leisure travelers, and also planning to drive just over 1,000 miles on their next road trip as a round trip compared to 980 among US leisure travelers. Again, we also asked about which road trip costs they think will be impacted by tariffs, and around half said gas prices would be impacted, um, with new or rental car prices and vehicle maintenance also coming up in those second and third positions. So, yes, something to watch out for there, but overall picture is that prospects are planning to travel further and visit more places when they do go on a road trip. And immediately, when we're looking at the top road trip routes for prospects, we can see that the Blue Ridge Parkway, probably unsurprisingly, is the top road trip route. Um, 1 in 4 prospects are planning to travel this route in the next year alone, compared to just 17% of US leisure travelers. Um, Again, that might largely be due to the proximity of this route, but also it's a very popular route. Um, Road trip planning timelines are also very similar to US leisure travelers. And as I mentioned earlier, with more trips being planned closer to the departure date, this is especially true for road trips with um, well over half being planned 3 months or less in advance of departure. Okay, so now let's look back at the key findings from this section. We can clearly see the popularity of road trips, especially compared to the US leisure traveler, with 73% of prospects planning to take a road trip in the next 12 months. Exploring multiple places and being spontaneous are the primary pull factors for these travelers. And compared to the US leisure traveler, they feel that the overall impact of tariffs on road trip costs will be a little bit larger, but again, not a huge difference there. And moving on to the next section now, we're going to have a look into family travel. Just going to have a. This section will provide a look into the impact of families, especially children, on travel habits. And we're going to start with an overview of the number of prospects planning to travel with their kids over the next 12 months. We can see that prospects' plans to travel with their children is both bigger than the previous year and bigger compared to the average US leisure traveler. While we have 43% of prospects planning to travel with their children during the next 12 months, only 36% of US leisure travelers are planning to travel in the same way. Multi-generational travel is also important, with almost 4 in 10 prospects planning to travel with 3 or more generations of their family in the next 12 months. And this again highlights just the importance of family travel to prospects. So, you know, as we saw in the demographics, there are a higher number of prospects than the US leisure travelers who have children at home. and they're also slightly younger, so more likely to have, well, younger children. So now let's take a deeper look into the influence of children specifically. And we asked prospects, where do children influence your vacation choices? And we can see here that children are most or have the most influence in planning daily activities, but their influence is also felt when choosing a vacation destination and selecting a hotel or place to stay. So, yeah, essentially, children are having a growing influence in selecting a hotel or place to stay, but also just the size of their overall impact is quite impressive. So, definitely something to consider when tailoring these destination activities. It's so important to have things that appeal to children as well as the older travelers, because if the children see something that they're interested in, especially activities, they're more likely to go to their parents and, make the case to go and visit them. And aside from kids' growing influence on family vacations, they also drive a lot of travel through their events and activities. So here we can see that traveling with children, particularly to take part in activities, it's more important to prospects compared to the average US leisure traveler, with 74% of prospects among those who have children planning to travel for their children to participate in activities. So the most popular activities we can see are sporting events and then performing arts and music events. So these are significant opportunities to tag on facilities, activities, and accommodations, things that parents or people traveling with the children can do while these events are taking place. And yeah, it's a big market. 3 in 4 prospects again are traveling with their children for some sort of event or activity. And yeah, now wrapping up this section with the key findings, we can see that from the slides prior that family travel is very important to prospects, and children continue to be highly influential in their travel decisions. I mean, the fact that almost 8 in 10 who have children state that they're influential in planning daily activities, and 70%, 74% of prospects who have children are planning to travel for their events and activities. It's, a very significant market. Um, on top of that as well, it's not just traveling with children, because 37% of prospects are planning to travel with 3 or more generations of their family in the next 12 months. So definitely opportunities to attract those traveling with their grandparents or parents as well as their children. And again, it shows how important it is to have activities which appeal to all different generations. Okay, now let's have a look into travel advisors. So, beginning with the rising usage of travel advisors, we can see that perhaps surprisingly, uh, travel advisor usage is growing significantly year on year. Um, I know that we were expecting, and many people were expecting, that the role of sort of human or traditional travel advisors would kind of decline as AI becomes more popular. But the opposite appears to be true. Travelers are valuing the human touch and the professional's expertise, especially their ability to kind of understand nuanced itineraries and requests and find those dream destinations. It's also not just limited to older travelers, with, in fact, Gen Zers and millennials being bigger users of these traditional travel advisors than these older generations. So, again, we can see that there's been a significant increase from the previous year. So, 32% of prospects have used the service services of a traditional travel advisor during the past 2 years, and 37% are interested in using these services in the next 2 years. So, why are these travelers using these advisors so much? We can see that these following factors are help to explain the primary reasons behind using a traditional travel agent. And right at the top is getting the best prices for a vacation. Following that, we can see that assistance with complex travel arrangements and having peace of mind, they're all tied and make up the top three reasons. Getting the best prices is an important reason. Obviously, with tougher economic conditions for many Americans over the last year, um, they're likely to be exploring the use of travel agents to see if they can find a great deal or maybe some kind of discount if they book through them. And assisting with these complex arrangements is a big factor, especially for those family travelers, those traveling with multiple generations. It's tough to link up all the itineraries and flights or accommodations and things like that. So, again, that's something that these traditional advisors are really good at. Many travelers are using AI and things like that, but it's not at the point yet where, they're trusting them to book their accommodations or their whole vacations through an AI tool. So yeah, that's the top reasons. And we can see again here what are the services that prospects are most likely to use a traditional travel agent to book. We can see that vacation packages or tours are the biggest service used by prospects. Lodging or accommodation stays are second, and cruises are third. So again, that just provides some insight into what these traditional travel agents are being used for. There was a big increase from 2023 to 2024 of the number of prospects using advisors to book a vacation package, but that seems to have kind of leveled out now. And to conclude this section on travel advisors, let's wrap up with some key findings. Most notably, travel advisor usage is increasing from the previous 2 years, both in terms of the number of prospects who use the traditional travel agent or travel advisor and the number who plan to use their services in the next 2 years. Travelers are most likely to use their services for lower prices, assistance with complex arrangements, and for peace of mind when they're booking. And AI is increasingly used as a tool by travel advisors rather than a replacement. So it's all about a combination of that personal touch and professional knowledge with the assistance that you can get from an AI tool. Okay, so moving into our second to last section now, traveler perspectives. This section will cover traveler optimism, motivations, and have a brief look into luxury travel. We're going to start it off with optimism or pessimism. And we can see that levels of optimism vary significantly based upon the factor that travelers are assessed about. Significantly more prospects are optimistic about the future of the US and the world compared to the previous 2 years, but still not exceptional levels here. The highest levels of optimism are found in the future of their children and their own future. But the travelers tend to be a little bit more pessimistic about the future of the US and the future of the world. But again, this is sort of following the trend from previous years, and there's no massively new or hugely surprising findings here, I would say. Um, Moving on to the most important motivations behind travel, we can see that making memories and bringing family closer together are the primary motivators for prospects. So we're seeing increasingly in recent years the importance of experiences over material items, and it's no different for these prospects. So vacations tend to be that one thing in prospects' budgets that they're least willing to compromise on. So they'll often sacrifice their spending in other areas in order to go on vacation and make sure they have a great getaway. Um, and we can see those reasons here that bringing their family closer together and taking a vacation being the event that prospects look forward to each year. Just the importance of those factors sort of explains again why the importance of taking vacation is so important. And now just a brief overview of luxury travel habits. We can see that luxury travel is slightly more important to prospects compared to the US leisure traveler. Um, One thing that is important to remember here is that slightly more prospects have a higher household income above $100,000 compared to the US leisure traveler. So that may go some way to explaining their preferences here. But almost 6 in 10 prospects enjoy being treated like a VIP. I mean, who doesn't really, right? And 37% consider themselves to be luxury travelers. We can also see on this graph on the right that a lot of categories have seen a significant decrease in terms of prospects' willingness to pay for them. The only area that really stands out that prospects are kind of holding on to and not willing to cut their spending back on is that first or business class airline seat. And that just shows how important that is for them, especially if they're maybe gotten a bit more used to traveling in this luxury. They might want to or might not want to go back to economy. And to conclude this section, let's just sum up again with some key takeaways. We can see that prospects have an overall optimistic outlook on most categories, with significant increases in optimism in the future of the US and the future of the world compared to the past 2 years. Also, making memories and bringing their family closer together are the biggest travel motivators for these travelers. And that just goes to show how important travel and going on vacation is to prospects and, people as in general. And finally, just summing up that luxury section with, again, almost 6 in 10 prospects enjoy being treated like a VIP. And the luxury experiences they're most willing to pay for overall are hotel suites or upscale restaurants, even though this willingness to spend has scaled back slightly compared to the previous year. Okay, and our final section now, vacation motivators and activities. This section is going to start by looking at AI usage and travel planning before looking at travel parties and travel motivations. So, AI, everyone's talking about it, and it's no different for travelers. Top AI uses include suggesting activities of interest and destinations. That's not on the slide here, but we can see in the line graph on the right just how much AI usage for travel planning has increased from Q2 2024. A 13% increase to almost half of prospects now using ChatGPT or other AI tools for their travel planning. And yeah, I mean, it's becoming sort of a central aspect of their vacation decision-making process where they may use these AI tools when they're looking for destination inspiration, or also commonly when they're in a destination and looking for activities or things to do. And that's the most common use cases that we're seeing. Okay, and now just looking at the travel party and expectations, we can see they're largely similar to the US leisure traveler, with the only exception being more prospects are planning to travel with their children under 18 in the next 6 months. Um, the vast majority of travelers are expecting to travel with their spouse, partner, or significant other in the next 6 months. And during this same period, they're most expecting to stay in a hotel or resort or visit their friends and family. Finally, now, top travel motivations. We can see that one clear trend is the importance of experiencing different cultures and exploring nature and the outdoors. The importance of these two factors compared to the US leisure traveler is clear to see, especially for experiencing different cultures. But the overall top motivator is spending time with their spouse and or children, as well as the desire to get away and unplug. And this mirrors US leisure traveler motivators too. And now wrapping it up with some key insights. We can see that AI usage among prospects has increased significantly over the previous year, jumping from 36% to 49%. That's a significant 13% increase. Um, 1 in 3 travelers also trust AI recommendations. This is significantly higher than the 25% of US leisure travelers. So, yeah, essentially more trusting of AI suggestions and recommendations. So, more likely to have their choices influenced by these tools. And over the next 6 months, prospects are most likely to stay in a hotel or resort, visit their friends and family, and or travel by personal car. And also spending time with family, the desire to get away and unplug are the top 2 travel motivators for these prospects. Okay. Wow. Thank you very much for listening. Um, I'll just recap the big picture quickly. We can see that North Carolina prospects are a very strong group of travelers. They much more resilient to the tougher economic conditions that many US leisure travelers are facing. They're planning to increase their spending and the number of vacations they take over the next 12 months. This is overall just a very positive picture for North Carolina, and road trips and family travel are key areas for these markets. And yeah, if you have any questions at all, please reach out to me. My email's on the screen there. And yeah, I'll hand it back over to Marlies now. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Peter. That was really comprehensive, and I hope everyone enjoyed that as much as I did. Again, if you do have any questions, please feel free to drop them into the Q&A feature. We'll be happy to answer those. We have a few more minutes left in our webinar. The only question I have right now is about the sources of information and how that can that be viewed by the type of traveler. So, is if there's a family traveler versus an alone or versus a with friends, um, would they be more likely to use different sources of information? And do you have that data available?
Yeah, I mean, we can definitely get that data for you. I don't think I have it available right now, but we might have to do a bit of um, manipulating the data to get that split. But we can
Okay,
definitely get that for you. Yeah.
sure. And then this is a question from me actually, is there are some questions such as the booking lead time or the interest in travel. How does that vary? And not just with North Carolina, but how does that vary based on the seasonality of the surveys? So you do these surveys quarterly, and do you see, is it pretty routine to see longer booking windows for summer travel, for instance, than weekend kind of getaways in the fall and spring?
Yes, great question. Yeah, I think that's pretty spot on to be fair. I mean, when we have our winter survey, we can see that there's a big spike in bookings for people looking to get away in the next 6 months, so for their summer vacations. I would say it has sort of leveled out a bit over the last year or so. There's definitely more travelers looking to get away in those shoulder seasons between the peak summer.
Hmm.
So yeah, it definitely varies based on it. Of course, we're always going to have like the most travelers going away over the summer, but again, there's a lot more people looking to get away, where there's lower costs and booking at last minute for those shoulder seasons. So
Sure.
yeah, definitely varies.
So another question that just came in is there anything that allows for the segmentation by travelers who stay in traditional hotel lodgings versus vacation rentals? I don't know if the sample size would allow for any of that segmentation.
Um, yes, I think we can do that. I know we definitely ask about the types of accommodations, and I know that we ask about traditional hotels and vacation rentals like Airbnb. So yeah, I think we can segment that. Again, I'd have to look into it and
Okay.
um, see what the sample sizes are. But because there's so many prospects, it's, you know, it's a good number to be able to cut down and
Okay. Well, maybe I could work with you on that and I can get back to the partner that asked that question. The other question was about copy of the slides, and absolutely, we will be providing those. Thank you to MMGY for allowing us to do that. We do ask that you cite MMGY with any use of this data because it is data that they do sell. And then our proprietary questions, certainly you can use those. But again, if you would continue to cite MMGY on those as well, that would be great. We'll also have the recording of this webinar available by the first of next week on our webinar page at partners.visitnc.com. But if I'll give it another, a few seconds or so. If there are any other questions, please feel free to drop them either in the chat or the Q&A. Um, we will make sure we get those answered. Give it just another minute or so. Seeing lots of thank yous though. So again, Peter, thank you so much for
of
joining
course.
us and for taking time to review this comprehensive study with us. We have really valued our relationship with MMGY Travel Intelligence over the last several years, and I'm really happy with the results that we are seeing and the intelligence that we are seeing. I'm not seeing any more specific questions, just a lot of thank yous. So we'll wrap this up, but you all will see these slides and again this recording. And then a little bit more housekeeping. Our next webinar will be September 11th at 10 a.m. and that will be our quarterly Visit NC update. So we hope you all will join us for that one, 10 a.m. on September 11th. As always, if we could be of any assistance to you all, please reach out to anybody on the Visit NC team, and hope you all have a great day. Thank you again, Peter.
Thanks very much. Thank you.